Haikyuu, Domino Ace, and Slam Dunk are some of the most notable and beloved sports anime among fans. But there's something about watching high school kids achieve their goals and have their whole lives set ahead of them that gets a little bit old. What about characters that have tried and failed at a sport and want to try something else? What about older characters who are told to give up on their goals because they are too old and they need to do something new? Being a little bit older myself, I scoured the anime world for shows that have a little bit more mature characters and situations that older audiences can relate to. Hey anime friends, welcome back. If this is your first time watching a video, there is one rule that you must follow, and that is you gotta grab your cup because it's time to spill the anime tea. I broke up this recommendation list into two subgenres. The first one is college-age characters playing sports. The first college-set anime I'm going to recommend is Cheer Boys. Cheer Boys is an anime on Funimation that follows shy boy Haruki, who is in a judo club, but after suffering an injury to his shoulder and seeing his sister win in a judo competition, he feels a little bit at a loss. He's at a turning point in his life where he is starting to go to college, and his childhood best friend, Kazuma, convinces him to quit judo and try something new, which is cheerleading. Cheer Boys could fall into the trope of pretty boys just doing any kind of random sport and being cute, but this show makes up for its heavy reliance on sports tropes and clunky dialogue, with a lot of heart and characters that really care about what they're doing. Plus, it represents a sport that's really talked about not only in anime, but also just in general, unless we're talking about early 2000s American movies. But I love that it's a focus on a sport that's normally seen as a girl sport by society, but instead we're seeing a bunch of boys get together and cheerlead. Plus, the friendship is very real in the show, and I love that they put a heavy emphasis on the two main characters and their relationship with one another and how they overcome their difficulties together in a very wholesome, not romantic way. Because we also need a lot of those in our anime as well. Not everything has to be romance. We don't have to ship everyone in every anime, okay? They have a very wholesome brotherly relationship, and I'm here for that. Speaking of pretty boys playing a sport and shipping, let's talk about Run with the Wind. Run with the Wind is my favorite recommendation on this list, and that is why it's pretty close to the top. The story follows Kakeru, who was a former professional runner back in his high school days. Now he's in college, and he suddenly finds himself thrust into joining and living with a cross-country running team made up of misfits and headed by a boy named Haiji. Haiji is a senior in college, and it's his main goal to compete in the Hakone Ekiden, which is a huge cross-country competition in Japan, before he graduates. The world of Run with the Wind follows this huge group of boys, all of which have their own difficulties and life journeys to tackle, but all come together to learn how to run properly and to compete together in this huge major competition. Boys are in college and they have a bigger range of age differences. There's literally kids from like 18 to dudes that are like 25 or 26 years old in different aspects of their college life. The appeal of the show is that all these boys are different, and seeing them come together to try to better themselves is just very wholesome. And along the way, you learn about each of the boys and you find the ones that you really care for. For me, that is Prince, who is an otaku who loves to sit in his room and read manga. And he is the one that running is the hardest for. He literally runs like a dinosaur for most of the series. And it takes him a long time to grow and change and be better and reach his personal goals of being a better runner. There's also Masa, who's one of the most adorable depictions of a black man I've ever seen in any anime ever. He's a sweetheart who cares about his friends and is kind of a gossip and loves romance. And the series is a little bit different from other series because it's more of a slow burn. We start off just kind of learning about each of the characters and their lives in college and what they're going through. And then gradually, more and more, we see them changing and growing until we get to the final amalgamation of all of their efforts, which are the competitions. Yeah, and the ending will make you tear up just a little bit. It is that good. Moving on to anime that's not as wholesome and adorable, but still set in college, we're going to talk about the anime Grand Blue. Grand Blue follows the story of a new college student named Yuri. He moves in with his uncle, who runs a diving shop and gets coerced into joining the diving club, despite the fact that he can't swim. So you know an anime is going to be very hilarious when the first episode is literally the guy being chased down by naked men for like the whole episode. The show, despite having a really interesting plot with this whole like diving club and the fact that the main character can't swim and all of these interesting little details that will draw you into the series, the best thing about the series actually has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with college life and drinking games and just really, really funny pacing and character expressions. If you're looking for a show that's not too serious and that will remind you of the great days of college where you used to get so drunk you could barely stand, Grand Blue is definitely a good time. Anime centered on the setting of college is a subgenre that is not talked about nearly as much as those that have high school age kids. And I love seeing how these different aspects of college life reflect on characters who are playing sports. Now let's move on to more mature recommendations on this list with actual adult characters who are just out living their lives, doing work, being adults. Before we do though, make sure you like this video if you're enjoying it so far, and if you want more recommendation videos just like this one. Let's start off with the Gymnastics Samurai. This anime was actually produced by MAPPA and is one of the little known original anime from them. It's actually a more recent original anime from them, which is interesting because they don't really do original anime anymore. I found this one a couple seasons back, and I think it's worth watching for someone who wants a little bit older characters and who loves father-daughter relationships. The story follows Jotaro as well as the Japanese men's gymnastic Olympic team back in 2002. Jotaro is considering retiring because he's getting older, and he is now a single father for his young daughter. But as he is considering retiring, he takes his daughter to an amusement park and ends up running into an interesting character who tells him straight up that he is inspired by his gymnastic work and wants to be like him. These words of encouragement from a random stranger encourage Jotaro to keep going and continue on in his career. Any anime that explores the relationship between a father and a daughter is great in my opinion. Plus, on top of that, I love the fact that it focuses on this older guy, I think he's in his like 30s or 40s, who's in a career that is heavily reliant on your age, and how he deals with overcoming that obstacle and continuing on or deciding not to continue on based off of what he thinks about himself and what he can actually do in his position. But the overall theme for the story is just you're never too old to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Anyway, moving on to a little bit more of a serious show, let's talk about Megalobox. Run with the Wind was my favorite college sports anime, but Megalobox is my favorite adult sports anime series. It follows a man who goes by the name of Joe, and he's kind of like a lone wolf. He doesn't like being around other people. He does everything on his own time by himself. He finds himself getting involved in the sport of megaloboxing, which is boxing with these giant robotic arm things that I don't really know what they do actually, but I think they help with boxing in some way. But by getting involved in the sport, he ends up getting a small team together and starts to learn the importance of family and relying on other people. The show has 2 seasons, both of which are fantastic. The first season focuses mostly on Joe becoming a megaloboxer and then meeting his small crew of people, which is a little boy and an older guy who coaches him through being a good boxer. In the second season, there's a lot of references to change and dealing with death. Lots of other really heavy themes. The second season is just really heavy, but it's told in a very beautiful way. There's themes of immigration and drug abuse and overcoming imposter syndrome and all these kind of deeper things that Joe, as well as some of the other characters that we get to meet along the way, learn about themselves and what they can do. What I really appreciate about the second season is that, and it has a lot of references to Latin culture with brown characters, as well as the titles of the episodes being in Spanish, immigration, and the problems with it in countries like Japan. So it gets really deep. It becomes a lot more than just a boxing anime, but there still is a lot of boxing in it, and the fight scenes are beautiful. The art style for the show is gorgeous. Creator of it was inspired by Cowboy Bebop, as well as another series known as Ashita no Joe, which is a long-running manga and anime series. Yeah, that was popular back in the 80s and 90s. The most refreshing thing about Megalobox is that Joe goes through a lot of changes as an adult character. In a lot of anime, adults tend to be really static after they reach a certain age. Like, kids can change in their dynamic and they have lots of time to become who they are. But when adults become adults, they don't really change much. So that's why I appreciate in Megalobox that Joe actually gets room to change and be a different person and kind of come into himself, even though he is an adult already. And of course, I couldn't make this list without talking about the fan favorite anime of all time, the fan favorite sports anime of all time, I should say, which is Yuri on Ice. If you haven't heard of Yuri on Ice, where have you been? It's been popular forever. We're still waiting on that movie. It's coming sometime soon. Keep getting teaser trailers. No date yet, though. Anyway, if you haven't heard of it, I will just say what the synopsis is just in case. The story follows a man named Yuri, who was once an active ice skater, and how he gets drawn back into the world of figure skating by a really famous skater known as Victor, who comes in and offers to teach him and draw him back into the world of ice skating. Despite the obvious reasons that everyone loves the show, the show also focuses on themes of losing passion in something that you once loved and then coming back to it years later, and the power of redemption and having someone believe in you to the point that you have to believe in yourself. It's Yuri on Ice. Just go watch it. There is more out there than just high school kids playing volleyball. Not that there's anything wrong with those boys. They're adorable and I love them. But I hope I helped to broaden your horizons on what kind of anime is out there for fans who are a little bit more mature and want something else in their sports anime. If you want more recommendations with series with adult characters, make sure to go check out this playlist down here. Thank you so much for watching this video. Remember, you're never too old to make your dreams come true, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.